Okay, we start the new Mamer now. Mamer Biur Aposik Yonti Bechagui Hasela. We're going to, that's the previous Mamer. This is a Biur on that. This is the number 17. This is the 17th Mamer in Shir Hashimim. Okay, so Biur Aposik Yonti Bechagui Hasela V'chug. We're going to an explanation on the Posik Yonti Bechagui Hasela, my pigeon that goes on the Yidden during the time of Golus, like they're in the cracks of the Sela, the wings don't spread out. Hine, Siv, behold, it's written, Kiloi machshevoisai machshevoisecha. The Eibishter says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. So elsewhere it explains that literally this is not understood. What's the big chiddush that we're saying that a human thought is not like the Eibishter's thought? How could it even be possible? Why do we have to even exclude it and say our thoughts? A human being who's physical and he's limited. Of course, there is no comparison to the thoughts of the Eibishter. This is a very obvious matter. That there is no comparison. Our thoughts, which are dressed in a body, relative to the thoughts of the Holy One, blessed be He, that Hashem, He has no image of a body. God forbid, He's not a body. So what do we have to tell you? That His thoughts are not like ours? Of course they're not like ours. So the Rebbe is going to explain, we're not talking about here the value and the quality of thoughts. That's not the issue. The loy machshavosai means the whole idea of machshava by Hashem is different than machshava by a person. By a person, by human being, machshava doesn't accomplish anything. Dibur and maisa, speech and action, that accomplishes. By Hashem, it's just the opposite. The more the machshava is much more accomplishing than the level of dibur and mais, level of dibur. But the idea is kihine be'odom, by a person, hirur, which means the reflection, thought, the haina machshava, which is thought. Loy ovid midi. Hirur doesn't do anything. You don't accomplish. Thought doesn't accomplish anything. It brings the Kinei because the behold, it's written, Hamachshava nikra nor, that the thought that the machshava is called like a river. It's a river because a river that flows all the time. That's why thought is constantly, there's a constant movement, a constant idea is going through one's machshava. As known in the interpretation that there is a river that comes from Eden, meaning that there is constantly a flow of thought. It explains. Behind that is just like a river flows from its source. It constantly goes. It never rests and it never stops. The river keeps on going all the time, constantly. Likewise, the thought, it is constantly flowing from its source, from the sechel. Never stops, even for an instant. It's always flowing, hovering. It's always the thought of person, always floating. Something, you're always thinking about something. But still, that's the machshava. So it's always there. But yet, it's still not going to do any action which is felt. And it's not going to make any impact at all. So it can be there all the time, but it doesn't do anything. It does not, there's no felt action from it. It just flows. It's not like speech and action which make a mark. A speech of the person and the action, they make a mark. Here's an example. Say for example, so when a person imagines in his thought to create or to do whatever thing may be, to make some entity, that thought is not going to get it to work. Just because you're thinking about it, that doesn't impact, it doesn't make it work. Even if he's going to imagine, and he's going to draw in his intellect the shape of the entity that he wishes to create. He has in his mind the exact kind of item that he wishes to create. It's in his mind. But yet, till that will be as if it was never there. Ad yifal yetzel. Either he's going to do and it's going to come out in actuality through the power of action that he's going to do, he's going to create it, he's going to do it. Or through speech in which he's going to instruct others to do. It turns out it turns out that the thought doesn't have the power to accomplish and to do as speech and action. Because action, the main action, comes dafke through doing. That if you can't accomplish, accomplishment comes through action, maisa or dibur, not machshava. So that's the machshava by a person. V'zehu tehirur le'ovid midi. We say that a person think that doesn't do anything. That in halacha, if you think, doesn't do anything. It's what you say, what you do. Why? Sha'machshava b'chinas ayin legaba dibur v'maisa. Thought is in the level of ayin, nothing, if you measure it legabe hadibur v'maisa, relative to the speech and action. So thought is considered nothing. Shehem hayesh va'ikar. They are speech and action. They're the main yesh. They're the main entity, and yesh va'ikar ukid l'kama ukselera. So this is machshavas ha'odam. But ein came the milo b'machshavta yisborich. This is not so above in his blessed thought. So over there by Hashem, it's just the opposite. It's dafke the Eibishter's machshove that makes things work. So that's lemachshavayse machshavayseichem. Machshav of a person doesn't do anything. What works? It's the machshav neighbors v'hayesh, and that's the entity. The neighbor says machshav. That is the force that makes things come into being. Ikasher lo b'machshavto ritzoynoi lahaves ulahatzil ha'atzilus, when it entered his will to create and to be mitzel, the level of atzilus, just in his thought that he wants it, hine oz netzal v'nishave mamesh al yidei machshava zuchulu. So then it became separated, it became netzal, and it was created through that thought, etc. K'meshekosuf kol zeh bepardes shara tzachtzachos perigibol. V'ayim mashekosuf mizeh gam kein bedibur hamaschil tiku b'chodesh. V'adrabe, on the contrary, not only is the main through machshava a lot more than the lower levels than dibur, but on the contrary, shom napechu. Over there is just the opposite. More machshava, it is actually a higher madrega. Sheis havus hametzius shal yidei machshava, a entity that has been brought into being through the level of machshava, who harbe gavoya b'maylo madrega, is on a much higher advantage and step mehametzius shenishave dibur, from an entity that has been created from dibur. So like neshamas Yisrael, which come from machshava, are on a higher level than malachim or the other creations that come from dibur. It's known in the idea that we say Hashem sees and looks until all generation b'machshavachas. One thought of Hashem encompasses all generation, everything that's going to happen. Shashom hulamaylo mebchinas geder zman. Over there it's behold. Machshava achad li b'kol el meisabiyam. Shom hulamaylo mebchinas geder zman. There, when we come to the level of machshava, over there is beyond time. When it comes to the level of machshava, it goes all of the worlds, all of the generations. That takes time in Zman, but in the level of machshava, it's all one thought. As it says in the Zohar, that with one thought all the worlds were created. Atzilus briyi tzira asiya, v'gam tchias hamesim, the world of when the resurrection of the dead, ve'elef hashvi, and also the 7,000 year, and also v'chol ha'aliyos, and all the elevations, all the different madrigas. Akol nichlo b'machshove zu shemimenu yisavusum. They were all included in that one thought from which they were created. Everything was created. That is because its machshove is higher than time. But when the flow comes down to the level of dibur, that is when the light became contracted, one diminishing after another one of beginners is chalkus, and in a way of his chalkus, then it became, it was created the level of time. Then we have time, we have years, we have months, we have days, etc. That is when it came down into the level of dibur. Shekosu b'sefer shel beinim chelik beis perik zayin. There it says, she's habus hazman urak mebchinas malchus dibur elyon. That the creation of Zman comes from malchus. So starting from malchus of Atzilus, over there, when there is the dibur ha'elyon, that's the level of dibur, supreme dibur. Over there, we come to the creation of Zman. Avo b'bchinas hamidas the Atzilus, but higher than malchus in the level of midas, in the chagas nehim chesed gvur of Atzilus shalom ma'ilem ha'dibur. Over there, see, over there it's written, Ke'elef shonim be'einecha ki yoim esmel. 1,000 years in your eyes is like yesterday, is like the day of yesterday, which means 1,000 years is like one day. This is all that it includes 1,000 years in one day. So when you come in the level of midos, over there, it's 1,000 years is one day. But when you talk about machshava, which is even higher than the midos, over there, it's even greater. It's even higher than we don't even count it as one day. Because he looks and he scans till all the end of a generation with one thought and with one scan. So what do we see from this? That the main creation is from the level of machshava. Ad shegam kol metzius kishola b'machshava v'nishave shom ayidei zem. That the entire entity that was created through machshava. So we said one machshava creates everything. So what kind of a creation do we get when it comes from the machshava? A much greater light than a creation that we get from dibur. Get much greater than light than it is in the Mahus Atzmus when it comes through Dibur to create Bia. The level of creation from Machshava is on a much higher, the energy and the light is much higher than the light and the energy that comes from Malchus, which comes from the level of Dibur, which comes down to Bia. Because that which was created through Dibur, that comes under time. As opposed to when it's in the level of machshava is higher. Over there also explained this idea. The main creation comes to the level of chayfetz, of rotzen of Hashem. Everything that Hashem wants, He does, which means the asiyah comes from the chayfetz. Why did we need a sorah mamoris? We need the saying, we need the dibur. That is kidei sheyiyah b'chinas yesh. So it should be an entity chulu ein shom. So you see that the created of the machshava is a much greater. So now we'll understand what the meaning of the pasuk Eloi machshavei seichel. We're not talking here about that Hashem's thought are much greater than ours. We're talking it's a different kind of machshava. This is the meaning. My thoughts are not yours. So be'odom gashmi nida machshavti nechsheves le'ayin. By a physical person, his thought is considered like nothing. As we said before, shelo yumshach mimeno shum ishavus machmas dakusa. Nothing will be extended from thought. He won't accomplish anything because of its refinement, because of its thin. It's not, doesn't do anything. It's not materialized yet because of its refinement. It's just in your thought. And that which goes and thickens itself, and it comes down to the level of speech and action, nechshav yoser liyesh, that is considered more as a yesh. Why? Shemehem yumshach ishavus hadibur hadavar ishavus davar, because from machshav dibur ma'aseh you will create the item. But Hashem's measure is not the same. Who yizbarech hasevim kol ha'almim hu hayesh ve'en biltoi. He is the one who surrounds the world. He is the entity. There's nothing besides it. And that energy that expands more into the upper and lower world, that is considered more as an ayin. So the fakert, the real entity, is Hashem's Sovev Kol. The fact that it comes down more in the world, that's considered less, that is more not. Everything is subjugated next to Hashem. And everything before Hashem is considered like nothing. The same thing is with Hashem's machshava and dibur. Just like with sovev, and the lower it comes down, it becomes less entity, and it's more entity, it's more real when it's sovev, because that's where Hashem is, that's the real entity. And everything else which comes lower is bottle, is not entity, is lachein, k'mei be in machshava dibur shelo yizbarach. Also, when we talk Hashem's thought, Hashem's speech, sheheim ha'oresh v'hispashtus alakusei yizbarach. That is the ray and the expansion of his God, blessed godliness. Hinei ha'machshava hu b'chinas yesh. The machshava is the level of the yesh, and not like by person. That's why it's by machshava. By a person's machshava is ayin, and by the Eibishter machshava is yesh. This it says that there is to give my ones that I love me yesh, to bring down into a level, I guess, of Ein Sof. I mean, they get the real yesh. Umimeno iker hayishabas. And from that yesh is the main creation. That's the level of machshava, the real entity of Hashem. Acha dibur nechshav b'chinas ayin, the extent that the dibur is considered ayin, and it's considered like nothing next to this machshava. Explained over there. So over there also it says it comes everything from chayfetz, and further it says so he referenced this before also, saying that so there we also explained that the iker the main creation comes from the chayfetz and the rotzon elyon. Bechinas machshava. Now that's the level of machshava. And this is in the biur al posik of Levush Malchus. And further, the Levush Malchus, the Ramaschal Havan Hefresh